Hi everyone, happy Wednesday. So I wanted to do another Watercolor Wednesday and another page for Watercolor Summer 2022. So we are going to color a page out of Magical Jungle. I'm going to start off with the Inktense palette. You can already see I've got some blues mixed there. And we are going to do the tiger picture, which I can't remember if there's more than one in here, but it's the one in the little frame. So give me a second to pull this up. So I use a combination of the Inktense pan palette and then the Inktense pencils. I do that for the background and then the pencils for the rest of the picture. Now this, I know I said in my last watercolor picture that the majority of my pictures from here on out probably will be done on pages treated with satin glazing liquid or gesso or some sort of treatment. However, this page is completely untreated, and I wanted to make an exception for a couple of reasons. One, I know that most people aren't going to treat their pages in Johanna Basford, and I have not tried Inktense before in my Johanna Basford books, so I wanted to show how it laid down for me, and B, to see whether or not it would bleed through to the page in the back. So the blues that I got, I ended up taking, of course I forgot to put all this in the description, which I need to do. Let me get my Derwent palette. I took my mid ultramarine and bright blue and mixed each of them with the turquoise a little bit. I didn't want the colors that were just a part of the palette. I wanted more of a, if you're familiar with the color in Arteza, the Mykonos blue, which is just a regular light blue, sky blue with kind of a hint of turquoise green to it, the color you're seeing here. And I wanted that kind of blue instead for the background. So I started putting this down. My plan was to do blue all in the background, but then I realized he's kind of laying on what I would assume to be ground. And so I didn't want him just kind of floating in floating in the sky there with random greenery around him. So I ended up using a little Copic pen to mark off a few lines to designate the ground, and so the bottom half of the picture I end up using a green. And again, I use the Derwent palette and I mix, what did I mix? Kiwi and Hooker's green together to get more of like a grass green, I guess. So but I wanted to try both because other than coloring in the Jungle Miniatures book when I first got them, I haven't really used my Inktense palette all that much. And so I wanted to try both sets of Inktense, and I gotta say my experience with this was not the greatest. The Inktense palette's really interesting to me. First off, because the paper wasn't already treated, any sort of watercolor medium on this paper, the Johanna Basford paper, seems to dry phenomenally fast. Like, you can see here, it's really hard for me to get any kind of smooth look to it because it's drying so fast as I'm applying it. It's almost like when you do a alcohol marker on Amazon paper and it dries so fast you have to keep working to avoid streaks. That's kind of what was happening here, is it was drying so fast by the time I was putting the watercolor down, I just wasn't getting that much of a, I was getting all these little streaks. And my plan was to take the darker color at the top and blend it into the lighter color. And I figured out very quickly that that was not going to work. That was I was going to wind up with lines. This this right here is, again, I don't know why I'm surprised anymore when I do this on untreated paper. This is the story every time I use untreated paper now. It dries so fast that I don't have time to play with the background and do any sort of blending or mixing or anything like that. So what I essentially did was I used the lighter color as a base, then went over with the darker color over the top to try to smooth it out some. And I feel like I used a fair amount of water on this, but not a ton. This wasn't really soaking through on the page. I would say a medium amount of water, I guess. So that was what I ended up having to do to try to get it to look somewhat smooth. Like I said, I couldn't do any real blending with it. And then when it dried, it still didn't look all that great. So I thought, okay, I will put, because I'm doing a voiceover now, so you know, hindsight and all that. I figured I would just maybe go over with my pastel pencils around the edges and do some shading on them. The pastel pencils didn't want to go over the Inktense at all. The texture it leaves, the finish it leaves on the paper seems to be rather repellent of the palette, not the pencils. Seems to be particularly repellent of layering other things on top of it, at least as far as I found. So I'm at a bit of a loss as to how to use the palette. I still want to try it on treated paper just to see if I have any better luck with blending on the background, and being able to use it and mix colors and do things like that. But except as just a solid background filler to cover large spaces like I'm doing here, I just don't really know how else to use this palette. Has anybody else figured out how to use this, what to use maybe over it, or like, I'm assuming since my pastel pencils wouldn't go over the surface and they're softer, like, I didn't even try colored pencils, but something tells me the colored pencils wouldn't go even on it either. So let me know in the comments if you've figured out kind of a use for this palette. And I'm going to continue testing with it, but if I try it on untreated or treated paper and I'm still not real happy with it and I can't really find any other use for it, I don't know. I might try to find a home for it with someone else, because I don't want to have supplies that are just sitting around and just getting zero use at this point. So we'll see. We'll see how it goes. But you can kind of see what I'm doing here with the background. Let me go ahead and hop to the grass part. Yeah, let's do that. And I won't speed it up. We'll just hop on over to that piece. Alright, so now we're going to do the same thing on the bottom with the greens. Like I said, I mixed the kiwi green, and my brain is not working. I've already forgotten the name of that green. Hooker's green and kiwi together on the bottom. Now, I feel like I probably should have went with a, you know, in retrospect, I think what would have benefited this picture better would have been a darker blue and a darker green. Maybe aiming more for a nighttime sky scene in the back with like more of a navy blue, and then I could have added some stars. Maybe the white gel pen would have went over the Inktense, and then went with a darker green down here at in the grassy area. But you know, hindsight and all that. This picture was interesting to me. The amount of greenery there was what was really throwing me. Was just I knew like Inktense greens, Inktense pencils, I feel like the colors are a little interesting to me. You have such a different variety of greens and some of the other colors that you don't typically find in other pencils, and so it's hard to approach. When I was looking at this, I was like, okay, I'm going to use all the different types of greens on the different leaves and everything. And that got kind of interesting, and it got a little muddled. I probably should have come up with, you know, 2 or 3 basic green combinations and just kept them consistent. But since this is a demo, I didn't really know what they were all going to look like. I mean, I had my sample swatch, but I didn't really know how they were all going to look like when they came together. See, that's why this is called a demo and not a color with me or anything like that, because I am essentially trying this. I've never tried Inktense on Johanna Basford books before, and really and truly, I haven't used Inktense very often, even though every time I do, I always am amazed at how nice it comes out. I've probably used it less than a handful of times, so I'm not super familiar with the color combinations and everything, so again, that's why this is named a demo. And this is where I try stuff, and it's either a success or a failure or a mixture thereof, and I show you guys what I come across so that hopefully you don't make the same mistakes. so so yeah, I think this would have been better as a nighttime scene in the background, and then with the leaves and stuff, you'll see at the end, all the greens get kind of muddled, and I wish I had stuck with just 2 or 3 combinations that I found I liked. But again, I didn't know it at the time, so this was more of a let's try it all and see what we can get. Okay, so I'm going to hop to the end of this, and then we're going to get started with pencil. I'm going to show you guys a little bit of adding the pencils to the real big elephant ears there in the picture, and then we're also going to do the big kitty himself, and then I'm going to I might show y'all a few little extras I added and stuff, but then at the end I'll show you guys the finished results and give you my final thoughts on it. So let's hop to the next part. Alright, we've got our sky, we got our grass. That is all I'm going to be using the palette for. Here I'm using Baked Earth and Willow on the actual frame for the pencils. I forgot I had this part as well. I didn't do real well in remembering my pencil combinations for this one, so I might be able to put a few in the description, but really and truly it's not going to fully encompass all the different ones, which I know was kind of dumb. I really should have wrote down the ones I used so I would remember which ones I liked, but I think I have a pretty good idea of the ones in particular that really jumped out at me. So here I am just starting out with a frame. One of the things I've learned about Inktense pencils is to go light with them to start with. They can get very intense in color with very little amount. I was just checking the back because I was already curious. No bleed through with the palette itself, so so here I'm coming in with the other pencil, but you want to start out light, and then once it dries, maybe adding more color over it, because one of the problems and one of the reasons I didn't use Inktense very much there for a while was I was putting too much pressure down on the initial layer, and so then I was winding up with so much extra pigment that it was getting everywhere, and it was oversaturating the image and just not giving me the results I wanted. So I learned, I think I did a color along of somebody else's picture. I think it was Kirsty Color and Sketch from Circle of Life, and it was a ocean picture, and I remember like that was where I learned that I was using too much pressure on my pencils. Now, granted, of course, that also comes into play with paper types. This paper does not, it brightens the color up some, but like where I was putting the pencil down, there wasn't a lot of pigment being put down. So I feel like I could have used some heavier pressure on these pencils and they would have been fine. It was just, I don't know, this paper to me seemed very weird with the Inktense pencils. And I mean the Inktense palette too, but the Inktense palette I think is just the palette. It's not the paper as much. But like, I feel like the paper just didn't seem to do as well, like I said, untreated as I usually get with a treated surface. So one thing I did do, somebody suggested, was using some like crafting sanding blocks or something. I love using satin glazing liquid and stuff on the paper, but I find when I do use pencils on it, it's a rough surface and I struggle with that with using pencils. So somebody suggested like a little very light sanding block to try to smooth out that texture a little bit after treating the surface. And so I'm waiting to get those and try those out, and that might solve my pencil issue with that. That's if I can solve that, then shoot, just about every page that I do anything with water is going to be treated. That's been really the only thing stopping me from doing that, is just because if I do want to use colored pencils, and even I guess Inktense pencils, I don't know how they would do on that surface. The cool thing about the Inktense pencils is you don't really have to worry if they're a little scratchy and there's still white space showing, because when you go through and activate them with water, then all that's going to dissolve out and it's going to completely cover. So alright, let's hop to the next part where I get started on the leaves. Alright, so I think I start out with, I think it's iron green on the top of the leaves. And then I use, I'm going to say the name of a pencil that isn't even colored name, it doesn't even exist. Use the iron green, and then I use one of the bright kind of emerald greens. I think it's 1330 is the one I use. And then I use like 1520, and I have the numbers on the swatch, but not the names. I use 1520 in the edges of the leaves. So I ended up just leaving the insides of these leaves white. Again, I am here lately been really trying to, there it is. Maybe it says field green? I don't know. It's been a day. It's been an interesting day. But I'm coming in with those. So I just used 2 greens on this part. And then like I said, I come around, I think, with the 1520 on the edges here. And I just scratch in a little bit at the corners, because it's going to pull out a little from those areas, and that keeps me from oversaturating the image with too much pigment, is if I leave a little bit of white space there, and then when I activate it, just kind of pull those together. It's a good way to create highlights in lighter areas on your picture. So there is one of the leaves. We will go ahead and look at the other, and I'm going to show you guys the tiger. We're going to activate them, And then I think I'm just going to show you guys the finished picture at that point, because we're already running on 20 minutes, and I try not to make these like crazy long if I can help it. And I know some videos I speed through with music, some of them I hop around like I'm doing here. I'm very it just really depends on my mood, like what I feel like doing that particular day. So today I'm more of a let's skip around mood. So sorry, I was sitting here looking at something. So I'm sitting here trying to do two things at once. I mean, seriously, come on, Michelle. Oh, Lord. Anyway, I don't know. I hope everyone's having a good week so far. I'm actually recording this on Monday, so the day that this goes up is actually my very last day at the company that I'm working with, that I've been working with for almost 10 years, give or take about 6 months. So about 9.5 years. My last day is actually Wednesday, so I wanted to pre-record a few videos for the week just because I know I'll have some last minute things I've got to take care of and everything. So yeah, let's pop over to the tiger, because that's pretty much what I'm doing with the leaves up here and with the leaves down in the bottom right. And on to the piece de resistance, I guess. I don't know. What does that even translate to, Michelle? Who knows? And I'm not even going to bother looking up. The focal point of this picture is this tiger, and this is the one part of the picture that I feel like at the end it came out really well. The color combo I used was bang on what I wanted, and it came out really nice. So I used a tangerine, cadmium orange, and golden yellow, I believe. And he takes a lot longer than I thought he would, but he's definitely my favorite part of the picture, and the part of the picture I was most pleased with. I think because there were such small spaces, and I like the oranges. Like, I don't know, I guess I don't like the Inktense greens all that much. Not most of them. So, which is a bit of a problem if I want to use my Inktense pencils, but I mean, the palette greens are okay. But like, I just am not a huge fan of I feel like the greens are just too much alike in the Inktense. Like, you get, if you have any swatches and you happen to be looking at them, you've got a couple blue greens. You've got that kiwi color, which I think is called something else in the pencils. You've got kind of a dark, the iron green's kind of a dark emerald, a classic dark green. And then you've got a couple emerald greens that look almost exactly like, there's just a slight variance in the shade. And then you get a bunch of like leaf greens and sap greens that are kind of like yellowish greens. And like I said, like 1520 and 1530, there's not hardly a difference between the two. 1550 and 1560, there's hardly a difference between the two. So like, you're missing out on a lot of green nuance because so many of the colors are so close to each other. And so I know that's shocking, because for the most part I like Inktense, but I just do not like particularly the greens in the Inktense group. I feel like there could be a lot more variation of them. And so I guess that's where I struggled with this picture, because I kind of wanted to start it and I kind of didn't. And like I said, it wasn't the tiger that was the problem. It wasn't even really the background. It was the all the greenery and the leaves that was bothering me, because I just didn't like the Inktense greens. And so I was like, okay, well, I'm gonna have to figure out how to make them work. So, but like the oranges and the orange yellows came out great. Like this was a great combo. And he really turns into a handsome little devil. Now, one thing I did do, because this was such small spaces, such tight spaces, I could have used the Inktense black on the black stripes. And I've used the Inktense black before in a picture, and you can get a true black with it. It's really nice. However, the stripes are so small, and I actually use the water brush out of the Derwent palette because it has a smaller tip to it for some of these small spaces. However, I knew that if I tried to activate the black Derwent Inktense on the stripes, it would end up smearing, getting all over the place. It would get all over the orange and mess my orange up. So I ended up filling in the black stripes with with the Faber-Castell Pitt pens, the black Pitt pen. And I like these pens a lot. They don't bleed through to the page behind them, and they are a great choice for filling in, blackening in areas and not worrying about it being soaked through to the page behind it. I use them a lot in my Disney books. So I mean, yes, I guess if there were coloring police and I'm not using the just Inktense on this, I guess they could come arrest me for that. But I mean, the thing is, the way I look at it, if you can find ways to make coloring less of a headache, why not use them, right? Like, I'm not required to only use Inktense in this picture. Like I said, in fact, I wanted to try my pastel pencils and stuff, but that didn't work because that was only because it just simply wouldn't go on to that background, is the only reason I couldn't use them. So, and I end up using a lot of glitter gel pens at the end as well. So there's nothing wrong with using mixed mediums. It doesn't, I also know that this is technically ink and this is not technically watercolor, but I still put it under watercolor summer because I'm using water to activate it. So yes, I'm very aware of that. I just, I I didn't want to have two tags. I didn't want watercolor summer and Inktense summer, so I just put them under the one tag. So look, I'm all about efficiency in everything I do in life. I'm the poster child for work smarter, not harder. And it comes in through my coloring as well. If there's easy ways for me to get a look I want, then, it might cause the purists to clutch their pearls a bit, but this is just the way I enjoy doing it. And if I'm going to be miserable coloring, I'm not going to color, so I might as well just do what I want to do and enjoy it. Oh, there's a little hummingbird out there. Now I feel bad I don't have a hummingbird feeder. I do have all those flowers out there though. Hopefully he likes those flowers. I've seen a couple of them out here. I went in the spring. Okay, I'm going to jump here in a minute. Actually, let's go ahead and jump, and I'm going to show you guys where I activate. I think we're going to start off with the tiger. Okay, there we go. So I started off using that water brush that came with the Derwent palette, but I switched back to my Arteza one here in a minute. I do go back to that one though. It's a smaller little handheld brush, and it's actually really good for all these small little leaves and these small little fiddly bits. The water brush I have here the tip's just a little too big, and I can't find my other ones at the moment, so I just switched back and forth, and that worked out well for me. So here we are activating the color on the tiger. Oh yeah, I was gonna tell you all about my flowers. So in the spring, I wanted something I could just plant and basically forget, because that's the best type of garden for me. When it gets real hot during the summer, I have no desire to go outside. So normally the local FHA does a greenhouse sale each spring with certain types of flowers and stuff. And it was their very last day, and I went over there, and they didn't have marigolds, but they had petunias and this stuff called salvia. I'm not sure how you pronounce it, but they had a whole mess of these flowers left, and he's like, you can have them for $12. And I mean, I'm talking there was probably $30, $40. If I had went to Lowe's and bought them, they'd been anywhere from $30 to $50 worth of flowers. And so I'm like, sign me up, just went ahead and put them in the truck. And brought them home and planted them all, and even had a couple real pitiful looking begonias that I just thought they never seemed like they would perk up. We watered them, off and on for probably that first month, and then kind of just let them go. And they have just done so well this summer, while I've wilted away into a into a sweaty, disgusting husk of a human being because of the heat. The flowers have done great, and they are like, the salvias really like reproduced. Like, there's so many more flowers than what I put in there, and those begonias, like, it hit the real swamp heat of summer, and they just flourish. There's like 4 or 5 plants for each one now, and they just look gorgeous. And I cannot. All it was is giving the little raggedy things a chance at life, and I feel like there's a greater life lesson there, but I am too tired to really contemplate that today. But anyway, so I guess the types of flowers I have must attract hummingbirds, because I've seen quite a few out there, which is great. That's exactly what I want. I want flowers that are friendly to like bees and hummingbirds and butterflies and stuff like that. So, but as you can see, the Inktense on the tiger is fantastic. I love the color combo. He comes out looking very spiffy, and like I said, I come in with the the Faber-Castell Pitt pen to fill in the black stripes with him. So now, the Inktense on this paper does not go very far. Like I said, it dries very quickly. Once you put a layer down and activate it with water, it dries very quickly on untreated paper, and it does not push that far. Even when I was doing the leaves and was going around the edges, it would pull a little bit of the pigment across, but not as much as I thought it would, not as much as I have seen it do on other paper that keeps the surface wet longer. So keep that in mind. I would still start out with, a fairly light touch to your Inktense pencils, because better to not have enough pigment and have to just deepen the color than having too much pigment, making it a big smeary mess, and then once it dries, that's it. It's not going anywhere. So it's not like watercolor where you can, kind of wash it away carefully if you do it right. So, alright. I was going to show you activating one of the leaves too. And then I think, excuse me, my goodness. It's getting afternoon. Every afternoon. And I've tried to drink more caffeine in the afternoon to help, and it's going to be a bear when I start this new position. I'm really going to have to find a way to deal with this even more. But I know most people get tired in the afternoons, but man, it hits 3 or 4 o'clock, and like I normally eat a late lunch because usually after I eat lunch, even if it's a small lunch, I guess because of the gastroparesis, like all the digestion saps what energy I do have, so I get really tired. Even if I eat like a smaller meal in the morning and stuff, it still happens. Um, and I think it's just my body trying to pull what energy I have from me to just do it. And but anyway, so yeah, it's a real pain, and oftentimes I have to wait till right after, the workday ends, go lay down for an hour or two, even if it's just to rest my eyes. Like, I may not fully take a nap. Like, you can see there, the pigment just didn't pull that much from the sections on the outer edge. It just doesn't go that far. Um, it doesn't go as far as I feel like it does on other types of paper. So I'm not the biggest fan of the Inktense on the untreated Johanna Basford paper. I would have been, I think, a little more pleased with the results had I been able, had it been treated, just because it dries so fast on the untreated paper that I don't really have a lot of time to blend, a lot of time to pull out that color and use less of it so it doesn't look murky um, or overly pigmented, I guess. I don't know, streaky, I guess, is what I'm trying to get at here. So, alright, so what I end up finishing up here, and like I said, we're already at 36 minutes. I think I'm just gonna go to the final picture, my final thoughts, but I end up filling in the rest of the picture, of course, activating it with water, doing the pit pen on the tiger. Then I come in, I try to use my pastel pencils on the background. That does not work. The pastel pencils will not, even with heavy pressure, they would not show on that. I like I said, I don't know. I didn't use that heavy a layer of color. That's the crazy part. Like, I feel like the amount I used was fairly diluted, but like the surface you get from the Inktense palette, like, it does not like you putting anything over the top of it. So I ended up having to grab my little stick chalk pastels and using a Q-tip to rub some on, and you'll see it helped a little. It at least made it a little bit darker in the final picture. Then I just like cover a bunch of stuff in glitter gel pens because I was just in the mood for glitter gel pens. Plus, I really wanted to give them a workout on this paper to see if they bleed through. That can be a common occurrence with using gel pens. And even going over the paper that had been wetted down due to the Inktense, it didn't show up at all on the other side, and you'll see that at the end. But yeah, so let's go to the final picture and my thoughts on everything. So, oh yeah, I was gonna say real quick before we do that, where I was alluding to that earlier, where this is, technically my last day at that job. Like, I'm glad I'm moving to the other job, don't get me wrong, I don't regret anything, but it still feels weird, right? You spend 9.5 years of your career somewhere, and it feels a little weird to not be working for them anymore. And the team I was on was getting broken up due to restructuring anyway, so it's not like I would have been working with them anyway, but it's, kind of bittersweet, kind of weird, and it's already feeling weird on Monday, so I just assume it's going to continue to feel weird all the way through Wednesday. So, and then I get a week and a half off, so woohoo! Though Thursday and Friday I've already booked up doing stuff, so anyway, alright, so let's go to the end and my final thoughts. Alright, so here is the finished picture. So, hang on a second. It is, I feel like super bright in here. There we go. That's a little better. got real dark outside all of a sudden. So, looks a little messy to me. I mean, it's probably not my best work in a Johanna Basford book. I kind of went everywhere with the different types of greens on the tints. I didn't really have a rhyme or reason to them. I just was trying them in different places. The Inktense palette, like I say in the video, I feel kind of conflicted about. I had some real struggle trying to put something over it, and with this being an untreated page, like, it dried so fast that I had to put layers down to even kind of make it a little bit smooth. And then, like I said, I was just, pen didn't really want to go over it. Pastel pencil didn't really want to go over it. And so I'm a little lost on how to use those Inktense, like the Inktense palette right now. Maybe if I'll have better luck if I try them on treated paper. But anyway, so overall, the Inktense did pretty well on the Johanna Basford paper. I do think ultimately I would still want to do this on treated paper. I did jazz it up a bit with some different types of glitter gel pens just because I felt like it was a little blah without them even outline the tiger, so he's a little extra shiny. Of course, the tiger's my absolute favorite part of this picture. He turned out fantastic. And there are some of the greens that I like. Like, I like the blue greens real well here. I like this kind of grassy green color here. It's just Inktense greens, like, I've noticed that greens can run the gamut from one pencil set to another. So, like I said, I was trying to use as much of the different greens as possible just to give and try them all out. And so, like I said, it's a little more haphazard. I probably should have taken out these like leaf greens and fern greens and stuff and just kept more with like the grass and the blue greens. But overall, it still turned out to be a pretty awesome picture. Like I said, in the future, I'm going to treat these pages in Johanna Basford books before I use Inktense. I just think, again, I work a lot better with treated paper because it buys me time before the surface dries. And this paper dries really fast with water-based mediums, I've noticed. So, but overall it turned out pretty. And the big reveal here on the back, this was one of the main reasons I did the page untreated. First of all, so those of you that don't treat your pages can see how it does, because I know a lot of you don't do that. And secondly, I really was curious with using the palette and everything, if because of the unique makeup of the Inktense pencils, if they would come through, as well as the Arteza glitter gel pens, which I hadn't tried in a Johanna Basford book. And as you can see, perfectly clean. So yeah. Thanks for hanging out with me while I colored this picture. And yeah, like I said, it's up there in, I feel like it's a good picture. It's not a great picture, but it's a good picture. Yeah, so I'm glad I tried these out. Let me know if you have any questions in the comments. Thursday I will probably have some flip through video of some sort, and Friday will be my completed pages. Saturday will be the next coloring book collection video, and then Sunday will be the kickoff for September's tags, or vice versa on Saturday and Sunday. We'll just have to see how I feel. So thanks guys for watching, and bye for now.